My name is Flint Foley with Tristone Group. I have two of my great referral partners on here, Nick Deneau, financial planner, and Brandon Wolf, mortgage professional. We get asked all the time at Tristone Group as real estate professionals, how do we recommend real estate investments and thinking long-term, how do we plan accordingly with our clients? And the reality is for us is we partner with good people like Nick and Brandon. We bring in the professionals, we can show them, long-term how these assets are going to work for them, and they can get real-time information from professionals just like the two of these people. If you're not working with a professional, we strongly encourage it for, you're going to see why today with some of the advice that you get. But we wanted to do this mainly for our clients. We get asked all the time, how do I get started with real estate investing? Does it make sense to invest in real estate? Should I start an IRA? Should I be investing in my 401k? We defer all of those questions to people just like Nick. When it comes to refinancing, pulling equity out of your home, we've got a great market right now with all kinds of options for sellers. But people ask all the time, how can I exercise this equity? And again, we partner with people like Brandon Wolf at Southern Trust to give us those answers. So this today is for you as our clients to get a little insight in how real estate investing can work for you from the perspective of someone like Nick Deneau as a financial planner. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nick, and it's going to be his show. Nick, all you.
Thank you, Flynn. I appreciate the introduction. What I've done here today is I've created a couple clients. Katie and Tim are both in their early 40s. They have a couple children, and they've done pretty well so far. They've put back some money. They've started with their 401ks, taken advantage of matches from their employers, built that up to different amounts, put back some savings for college for their kids. And they came to us asking about real estate investment. What I'd like to do is show you their current path and some suggestions on what it looks like with real estate being added as a first-time real estate buyer. What the plan shows, based on their lifestyle, that by the time they reach 65, they'll have about $4 million saved up. And then by the time they reach age 95, they'll have 12 million. So they're in good shape. So after talking to Katie and Tim about this, they asked, well, what if we retire earlier? The original goal was 65. They're on track for making some good moves for that. So we said, well, what if they retired at 55 instead of 65? So we brought in a scenario here. This is the same scenario until you change a few things. So I'm going to make one change. I'm going to say, instead of retiring at 65, let's retire at 55. And now their assets go from 4 million down to $500 at age 65. They actually run out of money very quickly by staying on the same path and retiring 10 years earlier. So I said, well, if you really want to retire at 55, let's make that happen. Let's look at buying some rental properties and currently use what you have. They currently have a house. They've got about 300 on a mortgage on it, but it has some equity in it. And so we said, well, let's go ahead and do a refinance. Let's keep at least 20% of the value, loan to value in there. And let's pull out the equity, which would be about $220,000, and use that to purchase a couple properties. The couple rental properties would be $110,000 each and generate about $1,250 a month. We'll let this load here. So now they're in much better shape. Obviously, they're still down from the value of the initial start because they're retiring 10 years earlier, which means that they're not saving 10 years worth of investments that they were before. But now they're able to, at age 95, still have close to $4 million. So that gives them a comfortable amount to be able to go into that. Now we've got Brandon here. I just suggested one option, but I'd like Brandon to talk about finance options that are available for folks that are just trying to start out.
Right. Thanks, Nick. So love the graph, love the movement and showing us exactly how it can impact a life and some decisions there. When it comes to investing in real estate, of course, from my side of the fence is to look at financing it long-term, short-term, whatever your goal might be. And when it comes to an investment property, we ask the questions, are we looking for cash flow or are we looking for long-term savings? In either which way that you look at it, there's a couple different ways of accomplishing the task. And as you said, if this individual, which many people do in this market, have a lot of equity that's built up even in the past couple years or even in the past 6 months, you can tap into that equity through a refinance. And a lot of people think about refinancing in the sense of, hey, I'm just going to go back into a 30-year loan. It's just going to make my monthly payment smaller. And that can happen. But what can also happen is you can tap into the equity of your property. As you said, you'd want to keep 20% in the property to avoid any type of mortgage insurance or anything of that sorts. But that equity at the end of the refinance is going to be stretched out over a 30-year term, blended into your current monthly payment, and you're going to get a check at the closing table that is no strings attached money. So at the end of the day, you can then turn around. Let's say you have $200,000 or $250,000 of equity to play with. You can then turn around and buy the 2 rental properties in cash. That's going to do 2 things for you. One, you're not going to pay interest in a large amount on the investment properties like you would if you took out an investment loan. So what I mean by that is on your primary residence, you are always going to get the lowest possible interest rate, okay? Because you live there and they know that that is the most important possession that you have in your life. So the bank is willing to give you a lower interest rate on a primary residence than they are on a what they call non-owner occupied, AKA investment property. So if you were to go out, you were to just try to buy an investment property, I'm just going to throw numbers out there. You're looking at an interest rate, even with really good credit, that's going to be in the really high 3s, sometimes even 4%, unless you come out of your own pocket with a really big down payment. Okay. Or what we can do is instead of you coming out of your pocket or tapping into your investments or tapping into your 401k to come out of pocket for this down payment, we tap into the equity. Right now, let's call it a 30-year fixed rate on a cash out refinance. It's still going to be somewhere around 3%, low 3s, depending on credit, and sometimes even high 2s on a 30-year. If you shorten the term on something of the sort, you're going to be well into the low to mid 2s. So at the end of the day, you can see from an interest standpoint, it's going to weigh heavily on pulling equity out of a primary residence or your property. And then from an actual investment standpoint, and Flint can probably touch on this better than anybody, a cash offer, you're going to have the availability of putting a cash offer. It can ultimately get you a better price on the house. It can get you the house in general if you're bidding against someone else. And it's going to give you the best deal because you're going to be paying no interest on that property. So that's one of the most normal ways. Again, the second way is to just buy the property outright. You would have to come up with a 20% down payment to get financing on that type of property. And again, we want to avoid tapping into our own liquid assets if we can use from a property. So that would be the most cost efficient. That would be the most simple, and that would give you the most advantageous offer on obtaining an investment property.
And Brandon, just to clarify that, so the 2 options that you outlined there, one was pulling equity out of your current home that you have potentially have no mortgage on right now. So you could reestablish a new mortgage on this property, but you get all the advantages of it being an owner occupied property versus an investment property. Lower down payment. That is
exactly right.
Lower interest rates, all that comes with that. If
Correct.
Someone says, hey, I'm just not comfortable with that, I don't want anything touching my personal home. The only difference is you go out, you buy the home, you put 20% down, potentially more, and then you're going to have the higher interest rate as well that you alluded to, potentially within this market right now, maybe the low 4s with a 20% down payment. That's
exactly right. That's exactly right. And the difference there is the collateral that the bank is holding. Obviously, they are going to give you better terms, better conditions to a loan if that collateral is the home that you live in. So it's as simple as that. Tapping into the primary residence. It really is not that scary because at the end of the day, all it is collateral being held, whether it's the investment or the primary residence. Now, keep in mind, if you accumulate properties over time, you can tap into these cash bought properties, or you can tap into a second home or into an investment property and pull equity out the same way. it just works the exact same way. The primary residence is always going to give you the most advantageous terms.
Yeah. And to Nick's point earlier, this is really to help someone get started. Once you're in the
Right.
game and you have multiple properties, you will have options that you can consider that could involve Nick and Brandon potentially. So
Correct.
you always have options the more assets that you own, but this is really to kind of outline a way to, number one, get started, and really going back to what Nick's outlining here, a way to potentially retire earlier or augment, what you're already doing currently right now. So this is really to kind of acquire that first property, or the two that Nick is outlining here.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's a little scary for a first time rental buyer. It's all unknown. So being able to have professionals like Flint and Brandon and myself to be able to help guide with that. Brandon mentioned the different interest rates and being more favorable on the primary property. That's kind of what we use this for. They originally had a mortgage at 4%, and then we refinanced it at 3.5%. So right there in the range to get you an accurate picture of what it looks like for your situation. And that's the fun part about doing the financial planning side.
Absolutely. And I can tell you from experience, I've seen people with the interest rates as low as they are. I have seen people over the course of the last couple of years, they've been in their house for, let's call it 4 or 5, sometimes 10 years. And at the end of the day, we not only lowered their interest rate, they accessed the equity in the property, and they lowered their monthly payment. That may not sound like it's possible, but I promise you, when we start looking at it and we start piecing it together, you can ultimately walk away with a lower, with just one singular monthly payment that's lower than you're paying now, a lower interest rate, and you have that check in your hand to go out and buy 2 properties to set you up for your future.